position vector and displacement vector. Consider a situation where we have an object at point P1. Okay. And let the coordinates of this point be x1, y1, and z1. So we can write the position vector for this. Position coordinates है ये ऑब्जेक्ट के, है ना. इसकी लोकेशन को स्पेसिफाई करते हैं कि ये हमारे रेफरेंस फ्रेम से, हमारे ओरिजिन से, है ना, अगर हम देखते हैं तो x एक्सिस से ये x1 डिस्टेंस पे है, y एक्सिस से अगर वर्टिकली देखते हैं तो ये y1 डिस्टेंस पे है, और z एक्सिस से ये इतने डिस्टेंस पे, राइट. सो वी कैन राइट द पोजीशन वेक्टर ऑफ दिस position P1 for point P1, OP1. So we can write vector OP1 as, this is vector R1, it is represented by R1, or we can write this as x1 I cap plus y1 j cap plus z1 k cap. We can write like this. Okay, now suppose this object has moved from this position P1 to the position P2. So this is the initial position of the object, and this point P2 is the final position of the object. Okay, so at point P2 the coordinates will change. Now the coordinates are x2, y2, and z2. So these coordinates represent the final position of the object. So we can write again, we can write position vector OP2 as vector R2, and this is equal to x2 I cap plus y2 j cap plus z2 k cap. ठीक है, इनिशियल पोजीशन आ गई, फाइनल पोजीशन आ गई, तो पोजीशन वेक्टर्स वी हैव रिटन. अभी कितना डिस्प्लेस हुआ ऑब्जेक्ट, कितना डिस्टेंस डिस्प्लेस हुआ अपनी पोजीशन से. What is the displacement? Delta r vector, or we can P1 P2 vector. Yes, so displacement is P1 P2 vector, or we can write delta r vector. Okay, now apply triangle law of vector addition here. So two vectors are in the same order. You can see vector r1 and delta r. These two vectors are in the same order, and this vector r2 is in the opposite order. So we can apply triangle law of vector addition, and it says that two vectors are in the same order and one vector is in the opposite order. Then the vector which is in the opposite order can be written in terms of the sum of the vectors which are in the same order. This is how we write. So that r2 can be considered as the resultant vector. We can consider vector r2 as the resultant vector. Okay, so vector r2 is equal to vector r1 plus delta r vector. And what is delta r? It is the displacement vector. Okay, so from here we can write delta r as vector r2 minus vector r1. Now put the values here. What will you get? Delta r vector is equal to r2 is x2 I cap plus y2 j cap plus z2 k cap, and r1 is x1 I cap y1 j cap z1 k cap. Yes, अब जैसे हम x को x से सब्ट्रैक्ट करते हैं, वेलोसिटी को वेलोसिटी से सब्ट्रैक्ट करते हैं, राइट, सेम क्वांटिटीज को, है ना, सेम वेरिएबल्स को, ऐसे ही हम जो आपके ये यूनिट वेक्टर्स हैं, आई कैप को आई कैप से सब्ट्रैक्ट करते हैं, जे कैप को जे कैप से, और के कैप को के कैप से. ठीक है, सो वी कैन राइट द फाइनल आंसर एज x2 minus x1 I cap plus y2 minus y1 j cap plus z2 minus z1 k cap. This is the final answer. Displacement vector का expression हो गया, right? This or this, if we say that this x2 minus x1 is delta x, है ना, delta x. So we can write delta r as delta x I cap plus delta y j cap plus delta z k cap. We can write like this. So we can also write velocity. See, how do we write velocity? Velocity can be written as displacement upon time. This is how we write. Okay. And what is delta r vector? It is delta x I cap plus delta y j cap plus delta z k cap. So we can write velocity as delta x I cap plus delta y j cap plus delta z k cap divided by delta t. All this can be written as delta x by delta t I cap plus delta y by delta t j cap plus delta z by delta t k cap. See, this delta x by delta t is the velocity vector along x-axis. Okay, and this is velocity vector along y-axis. This is velocity vector along z-axis. Okay, and if we have to find the magnitude of the velocity vector, then we can write square root of vx square plus vy square plus vz square. Okay. How do we write acceleration? It's delta v by delta t. Okay. So we can write this as delta in bracket. For this vector v, we can write vx I cap plus vy j cap plus vz k cap divided by delta. Okay. Further, we can write this as delta v. See, delta v x I cap, so separately we can write for individual terms. So delta v y j cap by delta t, and this is a delta v z by delta t k cap. This is the acceleration along x-axis, and this is the component of acceleration along y-axis, and this one is the component of acceleration along z-axis.